Hey guys, Dave from Nerdarchy, 4 nerds, by nerds, hanging out with this nerd.
I'm Ted.
And today we're going to do a video, and I'm kind of surprising Ted with the topic. It actually comes from our gaming table, something that happened the last time we gamed with another player. And, it created for an interesting situation that nobody had any inkling that was coming, except for this player kind of like ambush surprise attack.
Well, before we get into that, I want you guys jump down to the description below. Sign up for the Nerdarchy, the newsletter. It's a great way to get gaming tips and cool things delivered straight to your inbox, as well as learn how to game with Nerdarchy.
Score.
So, what's this event?
Okay, so as you well know, you ran a game this weekend.
I did.
You had like 2 plans for how the session was going to go, from my understanding.
Correct. Yeah.
One was going to be revolving around one character,
Mm-hmm.
and the other was what we did.
Correct.
So unless you mysteriously throw a third one out there.
No, that was the plans. I originally was, going to incorporate the session with, linking to a character's backstory. I feel as a DM, it's very important to take things that players have provided and make sure that there's something happening with it.
Dude, you could have totally did it as a flashback, as that character's life flashed before his eyes.
I could have, and I haven't thrown out that material. It's just like, okay, well, I wasn't certain when the player started talking what was actually going to wind up happening. So I was glad that I had, another idea, set ready to go.
Right. Okay. So for you guys watching along, so the gameplay video is not up right now as of shooting this video, but it will be up this weekend, and this video will go up sometime afterwards. Right. So chances are you had a chance to watch that video if you watch our gameplays. If not, well, spoiler if you care. But the scenario was the end of our very last session ended with this conflict between Scott's wizard Aislinn and the NPC wizard, which was my character's uncle, and Scott was being completely irrational, as everyone else at the table saw it. He's still just sticking to his guns. He's really strong in his opinion.
He's got his logical argument, and at its core, I understand what he's saying, but everything beyond the just base insult or slander, every reaction is overblown and taken to extremes.
Yeah. So basically, he feels like his wizard was insulted by the Dwarven wizards because they laughed at his 10-year apprenticeship, or the 10 years he's been doing magic.
Right.
And to the dwarf's way of thinking, like an apprenticeship is like 50 years.
Right.
Not the entirety of the time you've been doing magic, but your apprenticeship.
So he scoffed at just the 10 years, and I felt that was a very dwarven thing to do.
Right.
Now, he could have held that reaction back, but this dwarf's 175 years old, and he's just like, please, 10 years? What do you got to show for yourself? And rather than Scott's character taking it as an insult on the length of time, he's like, it insults me, my master, my apprenticeship, human race as a kind, and therefore this dwarf
and this humanity,
and this dwarf who has insulted me is now the sole representation of
dwarfdom.
Of Crathan Gulch and all dwarves,
But it gets better. This happens, right? But he holds it in. He doesn't say anything.
Right.
When the insult is laid out.
Right.
From there, the dwarves offer to aid the town of Griffingaf and help them build their walls. They send dwarves to do it. Then they send dwarven soldiers to root out this gnoll infestation that's in the woods.
Right.
During that battle, Aislinn is in charge, or not in charge of, but he's working in conjunction with the dwarven wizards. There's a handful.
The way I ran the game, I was giving the players agency to guide the story. So we actually didn't use dice for any of the combat. The numbers that were gathered were overwhelming enough that I was just saying, you know what, each of you guys, you have control of this story element. Tell me what happens. And it was a new thing I was trying to come up with, or not come up with, but a new thing I was wanting to try to just see how it actually flowed from story perspective, player perspective, whatever have you. And when Dave's character, or when Dave told the story, he showed Angus like being, I don't know whether you use the word felled or knocked down or whatever have you, but like he was injured. So Scott's character, well, I'm clearly in charge now
Of the Dwarven Wizards.
of the Dwarven Wizards, and never was there a time where like any of that was discussed or whatever have you. So you want to?
Okay, so from there the battle plays out. The human wizard orders the dwarves to do things that they aren't necessarily capable of doing. They just don't have the options available to him.
Right.
But he just sees it as them refusing to follow his orders. And then he goes on this tear about how the dwarves should not be allowed to build the Griffin-Gaff wall. They shouldn't be allowed into Griffin-Gaff. And he even, then challenges Angus. Which, he gets summarily, trounced when he goes to attack him. Big B's grasping hand, boom, Scott fails a saving throw. He can't do anything.
Yeah, so I looked at it as like, all right, well, I have no desire as an NPC who's related to another PC to just like, okay, well, I'm just going to kill him. It's like, you brought this on to yourself, so, all right, you're stopped. Are you calmed down enough? Should I let you go? And Scott totally is like, all right, I can't let this go. I'm just going to walk off.
Yeah.
And I initially, earlier in the session, we had learned that this NPC that I'm guiding is like the first rune scribe in the area, which is a prestige class that they talked about in the Unearthed Arcana articles. And Scott was really intrigued by the rune scribe. So he offered to trade the dwarf something for one of the rune stones. And he offered him up this book of bizarre knowledge. Every day, it's just you're always able to find something new in it, which it didn't greatly appeal to the dwarf. He probably looked through it a couple of times, but unbeknownst to the player, he wound up having somebody sneak it back into his stuff because he didn't need it, and he wants to have the actual rune magic grow, and therefore he needs new casters.
Yeah, he was actually going to apprentice him.
Yes. So, as Scott had told me, okay, well, I'm going to retire this character. I'm walking away. So I gave him, okay, that's your choice. That's what you're going with. A couple days later, you're looking through your stuff. You'll realize you find that you still have the book. And he's like, whoa, that's deep, blah, 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 blah. So he rescinds and wants to still play the character. So I'm like, all right, that's fine. We'll let it go. We ended the session there, and I thought everything was happy hunky.
We had a bro fest. We brought out the good liquor. We were drinking, and we thought it was good.
We thought it was done and over with, and I hadn't drafted up the dwarven mage as a character sheet because I wasn't planning to use him in combat. I knew how powerful he was, so I knew what kind of spells I could use. And, that's why I knew I could use the Bigbies. And it's a very dwarven-esque spell, in my opinion. So, when the next session happens, before the actual session happens, he's like, all right, we need to talk.
Well, you know what, though, even backpedaling a little bit, even, before he fought him the first time, I'm going, you can't win. He's got a prestige class that looks like is maxed out because he's got all the runes. He's got each of the runes, which it doesn't necessarily have to be, but like it's heavily based off of those runes. So that means he probably had 5 levels of the prestige class, which you have to have 5 levels just to take it. So you're looking at a level 6 character versus a level 10 character. In my opinion, is what I was saying.
No, level, yeah. Sorry, you had this
as a minimum, right? And then on top of that, I'm going. He also has 4 magic items, or Well, yeah, even the rune he gives away, he still has access to that rune. So he essentially has at least 4 magic items at his disposal as well that are based off of the class. He's a 10th level wizard caster. I'm like, Dave the player is doing the math going, you can't win. That, a solo fight with something that would essentially be, like 4 CRs above your level is death. It's not even deadly at that point.
Right.
So, and then, so he wants to talk to you, and then he's like, we'll do it on camera.
So, all right. So we start off, and the session starts, and he's like, I really feel that this needs to be a full-on challenge. We've traveled for another day, and I think that there really should be a fight to the death.
Yeah, so in game he's saying this, and he's doing everything he can to provoke him, and I see Ted him and Hall and dragging his feet. So I just finally in character just say, you should fight him. You should give it to him. If he wants a good death, give it to him.
And I'm very much against player character death unless it's like determined by the events. And Scott's actions or this character's actions are like, all right, this is what he's forcing. He doesn't feel that walking away is an acceptable thing. He wants to just have it fought out. So I'm like, all right, let's just do this. And
so at this point, you have the NPC reluctantly agree.
So yes, he reluctantly agrees, and I'm into a situation where I don't have the character statted out. He's not set to go. Like, I actually knew what his stats were mentally. I knew what his what his spell level access to was, but I didn't have his prepared spell book for that day. Now the character's not dumb, so if he sees things brewing over the next day, he's like, well, maybe I should have more of a warcaster stuff studied for today. I don't know. So they wind up having a duel. It lasts 3 rounds,
something like that. Yeah, not long at all.
Yeah, and the last spell that I do cast was technically enough damage that it could have brought him down in one go if I would have started off that one. So
you were 1 point away from flat out killing him.
Yes,
with the damage, because he was at 1 hit point.
He was at 1 hit point.
You did 30. He had
30 as a max hit points.
As 30 as a max hit points, brought him to 29. Had you done 31 points of damage, his character would have just been obliterated.
Mm-hmm.
So
he would have actually been a statue, because I used Cone of Cold.
Oh, yeah. Well, until I thought. Then he'd be a rotten corpse. But, that being said, all the dwarves just turned their back on him and left him to die, because he wanted this duel, and he said to the death, so we gave it. So we essentially gave it to him. Mm-hmm. It was only, due to one of the other party members that was there, that was a paladin.
So there was actual discussion, technically on the battlefield, when the other maid stops moving, it's like, Angus starts talking to Uthgar, and Uthgar is, kind of chatting with the druid and the paladin, and it's like, what's going on here? And everybody's kind of like, what do we do?
Oh, and he rolled he rolled his first two saving throws.
Yes. The first one, natural 1.
Natural 1.
So
he's now 1 roll away from death.
Two fails, automatically.
Rolls again, gets like a 12.
He gets a 12. So that's one pass, two fails, and like he was anxious to just be making the next rolls, and I was trying to have things go out in time, to be like, okay, I wanted to give anyone any kind of chance to say, all right, I'm going to step in and I'm going to do this or I'm going to do that. The paladin eventually goes over, pulls him from death's door. I seriously thought about, because of that one, adding some kind of detriment to the whole matter, but
like a permanent wound.
Like a permanent wound, or just like, every once in a while, he just gets chilled to the bones and he doesn't know why.
Well, you could do that one still. You could definitely do that. Like because we played after that, but we didn't do a whole lot.
That's true.
So Yeah, and so it could be something that happens, like, is an ongoing thing. You could definitely describe him as being cold all the time now. There's a possibility. Yeah, so the dwarves just walked away and left him to his fate, and even the human companions were like, "Should we save him?" He's pretty adamant about duel to the death.
Yeah.
And then for whatever reason the paladin determined he would. So afterwards he returned the rune that was given to him, and declared his feud was over. And was grateful for giving the chance for an honor combat with the NPC.
That had 4 times his hit points.
Although later on in the session, soon after that, joking, because Scott's character has an apprentice. He's like, my apprentice demands a duel, which he was just joking, but. Yeah, and the funny thing too is, me and Ted were talking, like, in the previous session, Angus had an apprentice that was introduced as well, and when we're talking about, like, the apprentice would be Scott's level.
Yeah.
Essentially, it was him trying to go toe to toe with the master as an apprentice.
Right.
Just did not work out. So I was curious, to get your thoughts on it and get it on video, because for one reason, like I kind of talked about it in one of the in the last email I sent out in the newsletter. Just kind of did like a scenario from our table and my thoughts on it.
Well, from my perspective, you can't give the players everything that they want, because it's never going to work, because there's always going to be things that are contrary to the story or contrary to game balance or whatever have you. I felt this kind of stuff makes for some decent role playing. It definitely makes for some interesting stuff on camera.
Yeah.
It didn't take too long to actually do. It wasn't too much of a hardship on me to, okay, well, what spells can I cast?
Yeah.
I think some of the players were like, all right, this was a little tedious to have to get back into it for the ones who sat through it last time. Some people thought it was amusing that you and Mark start commentating.
Yeah, we had to liven it up for ourselves at least.
But at the same time, I think like Scott's personality, he looks at things, well, he's a player character. This is just an NPC.
Yeah.
And I view things, being in the DM's chair, I've got all the information. And I look at this as like, well, you can't always look at things as a PC versus an NPC.
He's very gamist in his approach.
I look at it as, okay, they're all part of a world, and if the established facts of, as you pointed out, this guy is this prestige class. So even looking at it from a gamist perspective, what it takes to be that. The evidence put forth of he's got the 4 runes, which you would say at minimum, says that he's got to be at least 4 levels of this prestige class to get, access to the 4th attunement slot. Mm-hmm. So that should be cluing you in. The first time you challenge him and he just shuts you down before you have a chance to do anything, that should tell you, whoa, he's just out of my class. Like, I can't think about it. You can say, all right, well, I'm going to let this go, or I'm going to walk away, or I'm going to turn this guy into a villain. All kinds of different options that you can have happen.
Well, Scott did do better. He went from a half a round to 2.5 rounds.
Yeah, that's true.
He legitimately thought he could win too. He believed it.
And I don't know everything on Asen's character sheet, but he can't.
There's not enough there.
there really isn't enough damage to really go up against a hill dwarf caster that's got significantly higher level spell slots than you. You pointed out that he could have sat there and just be like, all right, what do you got? Counter, counter, counter. Are you done yet? Counter, counter.
Yeah.
You know, and he had the slots to do it, you know, and I didn't feel that would be very dwarvenly. It wouldn't be, you know, it wouldn't fit that particular character.
I would have totally did that, but his actions on his turn for each round would have just been to punch Aeson in the face.
Well, with his, 18 strength, it would not have lasted very long.
Well, you know, it's only 5 points a round.
Yeah.
So, but that's fine. Like, it was interesting. I thought it was funny. I had fun with it. Hopefully it's truly done and over with now. Aeson is no longer trying to run the dwarves out of the town by himself, which was kind of funny because he was like trying to make these decisions and calls that like none of us were in a position to make.
Yeah.
Like, that would be like the council and the
Mayor
mayor in the city. Now I'm kind of hoping that he'll pursue it further and like start a campaign in the city and try like a more political route of doing it. That would be really interesting, and also have more chance of success.
I just don't see where his platform is gonna go, because it's not like anything the dwarves have done other than having trade routes. Like there isn't a like there's more benefit to Griffin-Gaff than there is to Creath and Gold.
Well, I agree, and I've made that argument in character. You know, like,
Right.
if you drive the dwarves away, I don't think the citizens of Griffin-Gaff will thank you.
Because it's like, well, where'd our militia go? Where's our soldiery?
So there's always that. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to watch the gameplay. What do you think? I know a bunch of you guys weighed in on the initial Aeson's outburst, but he's always played that character a little nutty, in my opinion. So
There's been some shining moments.
yeah. With that in the comments, you can let us know while you're at it. Like, share, and subscribe.
Or you can check out all the awesome stuff over on nerdarchy.com.
Until next time,
Stay nerdy.